Now, game week 15 is shaping up to be a pretty average game week for me so far. I've got 51 points and I'm in 275k overall. But I do feel like my team is getting into a good place now for the long run. And here are my transfer plans for game week 16. So a quick canter through how my team has actually got on so far. I'm recording this video ahead of the Wolves and West Ham game. You can see there I've got Aït-Nouri, but I don't own Cunha or Bowen, and I think Cunha and Bowen could do some damage to my rank this week. It's the El Sakiko, isn't it? So I think both teams are going to go out trying to win the game. So I do feel like there's going to be goals there for both Bowen and Cunha. So yeah, I must say I'm a little bit worried about the damage that those two could do to my rank, but it is what it is. I don't own them. I just got to take it on the chin. Going into game week 15, I made a couple of transfers. I sold Mbeumo and Chris Wood for Semenyo and Isak. That's not gone well so far. Mbeumo, obviously, with his goal, well, yeah, just did fantastically in game week 15. And Isak came in for Chris Wood. They scored exactly the same amount of points. But to be honest, I think Isak is better than Chris Wood in the long run. So I'm very happy to, have that transfer locked in and made now, even though they scored equal points. And the reason for bringing in Semenyo was because whilst Mbeumo did really well in game week 15, I just thought the amount of chances that have been created for him just haven't been that impressive. And I still think that was the case in game week 15. Even though he performed well, I still don't think, there were many chances actually created for him. He mostly did it all himself. So I'm happy to have Semenyo in there for the long run. And I think when you look at transfers, you have to look at them for the long run. If they haven't worked out over the course of just one game week, that's probably not the time frame you should be looking at. And I think that's a general bit of advice for anyone playing FPL, really. It can be quite easy to make a transfer, it not work out for the space of one game week. And, be a bit upset with yourself, regret making the transfer and want to get rid of the player you bought in straight away. That's not really the mentality you should be in. You should be making a transfer for 3 to 5 game weeks at least, I would say, and then coming to a conclusion on whether that was a good idea or not after that period of time. And that's what I'm going to do with Semenyo and Isak. Just talking through the rest of my team. Talking about bad transfers, by the way, Rob Sanchez has been a disaster. He got benched in game week 14 after I sold him for bought him for Flecken, and then a 0-pointer against Tottenham with a yellow card, and Flecken got an assist. So Flecken has actually outscored Sanchez in the time that Sanchez has been in my team. Timber, Fulham played really well against Arsenal. Yeah, unfortunate that we didn't get anything from him. I'm happy to keep him in my team. Seems to be nailed on to continue to start for Arsenal. With Ben White being injured, he actually played at left back against Fulham. Didn't have his best game, I must say, but I wouldn't let that worry me too much in terms of his minutes going forwards. We'll see what Aït-Nouri produces against West Ham. I did have a little bit of a benching headache in game week 15. It was between Aina and Colwill. Colwill had Tottenham away, obviously, and Aina had Man United away. Both not ideal fixtures, but I thought rather than being doubled up on Chelsea, because I did believe they would concede against Spurs, I probably spread the risk and pick Aina. Ultimately, they scored the same amount of points, so it didn't make much of a difference. They won the game, but obviously conceded a couple of goals. Rodgers, yeah, a blank basically. Obviously kept a clean sheet, but then got a yellow card. Palmer, this is where it kind of unfolds for my team, really. I look back on my transfer decisions and captaincy decisions I made into the 15 deadline, and going back, I do them all over again. I've kept Haaland in my team for this long because I've always wanted him as like a differential captaincy option if the opportunity emerged. And I think that Merseyside derby being postponed, Haaland having Crystal Palace away versus Palmer having Tottenham away, for me, that was prime time to go a bit different in captain Haaland. And I know it didn't work out for me, obviously Palmer with the 2 goals and an assist. But I just think, number one, I was a little bit unlucky because obviously both of Palmer's goals came from really shocking penalties that Bissouma and Sarr gave away for Tottenham. They were terrible penalties to give away. I was really trying to not get too frustrated about it because obviously the outcome is out of my control. But, had it not been for 2 crazy errors by those Tottenham midfielders, Palmer would only have an assist and I'd be up on points. So it's kind of fine margins there. And I go back to decisions as well, and I think it's only, in some cases, it can be a bad decision if going back in time in the exact circumstances you were in when you'd made the decision, you think you'd do it differently if you had the opportunity again with the information you had. But I look back into the Game Week 15 deadline and I just don't think I'd do anything differently. The transfer decisions with the information I had, Chris Wood not getting many chances created by him by the Nottingham Forest team. He's doubling his XG in terms of goals he's produced this season. And Mbumo having 1 shot in 5 games. I think there was justification to take both of those players out and also justification to captain Haaland with the Merseyside derby being postponed. So, yeah, I look back on my decisions and I don't regret them. It just hasn't quite worked out for me yet this game week. I had to play Dibbling. He's been really good. Southampton's best player. He's only 4.5 million and he was probably the one time he will actually appear in my team. But rather than make a transfer, I thought I'd just play him and trust him to do something against Villa. And then another blank for João Pedro. He's been a little bit disappointing since I brought him in. I'll do a little feature on how recent transfers have worked out for me in a second. But I brought him in for Raul Jimenez. And Raul Jimenez has actually outscored João Pedro in the time that I've done that, which is really disappointing, despite the fact that Raul Jimenez has been on the bench for one of those games. So, yeah, recent transfers might not have worked out, but I'm looking long-term in this game because ultimately we're not even halfway through the season yet. All right, quick look at how my team is looking for Game Week 16 and a little bit beyond. I've got the 3 Game Week expected points view here, courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. I didn't say it at the beginning of the video, but if you want to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, you get a month free if you sign up using the link in the description. Sanchez, Aït-Nouri, Timber and Aina as my goalkeeper and defenders. I guess the one decision to make with these, well, the 5 defenders I could possibly start is do I start Colwill or Aina? And I just think with how good Brentford have been scoring goals, I know I've just poo-pooed on Brian and Mbumo, but Brentford, as a team, have not had any issues scoring goals. I am probably going to just spread the risk. I don't want to be doubled up on that Chelsea defence, so I'm going to start Aina. I wouldn't completely rule out his chances of keeping a clean sheet against Aston Villa at home either. So yeah, I'm going to go Sanchez and Aina. Aït-Nouri and Timber as my other 2 defenders, providing Aït-Nouri gets through the game without picking up his 5th yellow card in Game Week 15, and he's going to start for me against Ipswich. He's potentially on the chopping block for me, but ultimately, the fixtures he's got coming up, Ipswich and Leicester, I just don't think there's any reason to get rid of him. Timber, he's done relatively okay in my team so far. I'm going to keep hold of him. I think he's pretty much nailed on to play every game while Ben White is out, to be honest. And I know he had a fairly disappointing performance at left back against Fulham, but I still think he's one of Arteta's favourite defenders. Yeah, he's going to stay in my team, and I'm hoping that he performs against Everton, who have real problems scoring goals at the moment. Cole Palmer, Salah, Semenyo, Rodgers in my midfield. Ultimately, I think that's a pretty acceptable midfield 4. Although I would say, with slightly tough fixtures coming up, might be time to do something about Morgan Rodgers, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself just yet. He's got Forest away, Man City and Newcastle in his next 3. That's, not the easiest set of fixtures. Haaland, Isak and João Pedro up front. I don't see a real reason to do anything with them either. The real decision I've got, and I must say I'm still undecided on it, is who to captain. We've got Champions League and European football to play out this week, so I don't think it's really worth nailing on your captain until all of that's played out. But I genuinely think either one of Palmer, Salah and Haaland could be good captaincy options. You could build a case for all 3. So all I'm going to do is just wait. I'm going to wait and see what happens in European football and make a decision later on in the week. So I've been managing this little slide over the last few weeks that I thought would be useful, and it's just my shortlist. Players in the game that I really like the look of that I'd consider bringing into my team. In terms of goalkeepers, Sanchez has been pretty disappointing in my team, although I think I just have to stick and be patient with him now, with just the extremely good fixture run that Chelsea have coming up. I think I just have to stay patient and the clean sheets will come. But in terms of goalkeepers I could potentially look at, definitely Pickford. Well, he's got tough fixtures, but I always say this in most of my videos. I think Pickford and Onana come the end of the season will be the 2 top scoring goalkeepers. I really do. Raya, obviously Arsenal, one of the best defences in the league. He's making saves, getting the clean sheets. He's a pretty good option. And Verbruggen as well of Brighton. They've got some semi-decent fixtures coming up. But ultimately, I don't think, unless it's Onana, but obviously he's got Man City coming up in Game Week 16. So I just don't think I can justify bringing him in ahead of Man City. But I do think he's a good option. And I would, if Sanchez continues to disappoint me, I think I might just bite the bullet and go for Onana. And I probably should do that because in most of my videos where I've spoken about goalkeepers, I've said he could well be the top scoring goalkeeper come the end of the season. In terms of defenders, here's my shortlist here. But again, I don't have the cash to bring some of these players in, or I'm pretty settled on the cheap defenders that I have in my team currently. Kirkez of Bournemouth does look pretty good. Bournemouth have a lovely fixture run coming up, but I just don't think I can see myself getting rid of Aït-Nouri, Aina or Colwill for him. Gabriel's injured at the moment, really unsure about his minutes. And while I've got Timber, there's just no reason to change him for Saliba, and I don't have enough cash to upgrade to him. And the same applies to the other defenders, really. I don't see myself changing any of the cheap ones at the moment. And as for Trent and Van Dijk, I'd love to have them in, but I just don't have the cash as it stands at the moment. In terms of midfielders, I really feel like I'm missing out on Saka. I do feel like I got away with one there with him not returning against Fulham. Bruno Fernandes is always a good FPL option, but I can't reach him. Odegaard, I can't get to him either. Brennan Johnson is a player that I do really like the look of. You can say what you want about Spurs being, not performing well against Chelsea or whatever, but one thing they have not had issues doing is scoring goals. Brennan Johnson has got 9 attacking returns in his last 15 appearances. I think he could be a really good option. Southampton away in game week 16, then he's got Liverpool after that, but Tottenham do not have issues scoring goals, and I wouldn't rule them out being able to score in that Liverpool game. Nottingham Forest away is a tough one, but again, they are not having problems scoring goals, so they could well score in that game. And then Wolves and Newcastle after that. It's a relatively decent fixture run, with Liverpool and Nottingham Forest being the two tougher ones there. Yeah, he's kind of going under the radar as well. I think he's just under 10% ownership at the moment, so I'd count that as a differential. Yeah, I really like him as an option, but there's just no one I'd rather want to get rid of. I can't upgrade Semenyo or Rodgers for him, and there's just no reason for me to take out Salah or Cole Palmer for him. But I am really looking at him as an option, and I wanted to speak about him specifically because I think he could be a good option for your team if you can get to him. While making the graphics for this video this morning, I thought it'd be a good idea just to see how my team has performed with its recent transfers. So I did a little screenshot of the FPL app from game week 12 to game week 15 and my transfers, just to see how they've gotten on. So you can see there in game week 12, I did Rico Lewis to Colwill. In game week 13, I did Raul Jimenez to João Pedro and Guardiola to Timber. In game week 14, I did a goalkeeper transfer. I swapped Flecken to Sanchez. In 15, as I said, I did Mbeumo and Wood to Semenyo and Isak. And you can see there, I totted up the total number of points that they've scored while they've been in my team. Colwill, he has scored 9 points in that time, but he got his clean sheet against Aston Villa, which is a game that I actually benched him for, which I go back and think that was actually still a decent decision. And the players I've taken out have scored 53 points, and the players I've brought in have scored 40 points. And the general point I wanted to make around this, and it's quite funny because I give this as advice, and then I haven't necessarily followed it myself, which is a lesson learned for me, really. I don't claim to be some perfect FPL expert or anything. But the lesson learned for me, I think, is around luxury transfers. And I keep trying to hammer this point home on streams when people ask me about, I did a couple of reaction streams this weekend. A couple of people in the comments were being really knee-jerky about players that didn't perform in 1 week and wanting to get rid of them. And my general point was, number one, you make a transfer for the space and time of 3 to 5 weeks, which I want to apply here, by the way. So I can't say that transfers in game week 13, 14, 15 have been a disaster because they've not been in my team long enough to prove that. But you've got to judge a transfer over that time frame rather than just bringing a player in and judging them after 1 game week. You should be making transfers with that 3 to 5 game weeks timeline. But also luxury transfers. So when you take out a player who you pretty much guarantee is going to play every game, is a decent FPL option, but you swap them for a player is a decent FPL option and is going to play every game, but you do it because you believe that second player is simply going to score more points than the other one. That's what I see as a luxury transfer. That's a bit of a long explanation. And I'd say a lot of these moves here have been luxury transfers. Look at, Lewis to Colwill, probably not, just with Lewis's minutes. Raul and Guardiola out for Timber and João Pedro, probably a luxury move. Flecken to Sanchez, probably a luxury move. And then the 2 I made in 15, you could also consider luxury moves. And they haven't paid off for me. I'm 13 points down from those luxury transfers. So I just want to use my learnings from this. Well, like I said, it's not been long enough to necessarily judge the transfers yet, but I wanted to use it to prove a point that those luxury transfers where you swap one player for another and they're both going to play, you just think one is going to score more points than the other, they don't always pay off. I'm just going to go back to my team. At the moment, genuinely, I don't think I'm going to make a transfer with this. I've got 2 free transfers, 0.6 in the bank, as you can see here. But ultimately, I'm quite happy with how my 11 and bench is looking for game week 16. I just don't see an obvious transfer. So I'm likely, unless there's any injuries that come out in the Champions League or whatever, or Aït-Nouri gets his 5th yellow card maybe, that could be a chance to make a transfer there. But ultimately, yeah, I just don't see a desperate need to make one, and I'll likely be rolling into game week 16. Alright, that's the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I feel like I was a little bit rambly with this one, as I always am with my transfer plans video, but I think that's part of the idea of making these videos. You know, you get my live and direct thoughts on my team as they go, and I'm kind of thinking aloud as I make this video, which I hope is useful for you so you can see my thought process with my team. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video and found it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there's any changes you'd make to my team. And yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. Cheers.